the Chicago Bears have moved outside of the preseason period, and they are now into the roster cutting period of the offseason. They've already made a handful of roster cuts. We'll talk about who those cuts are, what's expected to come down the pipeline for the Chicago Bears. We'll talk about all that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
Bears fans, welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Terrell Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. And the Chicago Bears have until tomorrow at 3 p.m. to have their roster slimmed down to 53 men. And that's where all 32 teams in the NFL have to get their rosters down by. And the Bears have already started getting to work on that. This is a time period where there's going to be a lot of Bears fans that said, oh, no, the Bears got it wrong on this guy, or this guy should have been gone. And that's what we do as a fan base over this time period. But the Bears have already cut a number of players. Samori Touré was one of the first players that was waived by the Chicago Bears, the wide receiver. He's gone. The Bears have moved Terrell Smith to the injury reserve, which opens up a roster spot that they can use for him without cutting him and keeps him basically on the roster, for this season where he could work out in the facilities, things like that. He'll be back next year. Terrell Smith, once the season went down, it's kind of a foregone conclusion, especially with Nahshon Wright looking as good as what he has for the Chicago Bears. The Bears have also waived linebacker Swayze Bosman as well, former Kansas City Chief. He was waived, also didn't do a lot in the preseason. Offensive lineman Chris Glazer was also waived. The Bears have had some offensive linemen show up in depth there. We'll see what happens. The tight end Thomas Gordon was waived. I don't even remember him making a big impact or doing anything. Defensive back Mark Perry, defensive back Jeremiah Walker was also waived. And those are the roster cuts as it stands right now for the Chicago Bears. Again, when major roster cuts happen, we'll go ahead and drop. If it's any big names other than that, I'll probably do an episode at the end of each day going over any roster cuts that we did not talk about at the top. But as it stands right now, those are the guys. The Bears have already waived 6 players as it stands right now from their roster, with Terrell Smith being moved to injury reserve. So the Bears are making their way through those roster cuts, and we'll see. I do think the next wave of roster cuts is probably pretty obvious, right? Like, while a guy like Trey Flowers, who came in with this length and stuff, I can see him really being a roster cut by the Chicago Bears. Trey Flowers had his moments, but I think a guy like Zay Frazier is going to have a better chance at staying on than Trey Flowers. The Bears already have a very deep cornerback room. Now, of course, with being able to put Terrell Smith on injury reserve, that may change some things. We'll also see what the Bears end up doing with a player like Austin Booker, who's also expected to miss a few weeks. If they put him on injury reserve, he could be out for 4 weeks, but that would open up another roster spot. But Trey Flowers, I do think, is going to be one that's gone. Austin Reed, I think he's going to be gone. Now, he may stick around on the practice squad, but, I think with Tyson Bagent doing what he did, I think he's all but gone. One of the first guys I think could be a difficult. Now, it's going to come down to me to either J.P. Richardson or Tyler Scott. And J.P. Richardson, who got off a really good start in training camp, absolutely right. I think it did pretty good for him there. But he is one of the players also that suffered an injury. Tyler Scott had himself a nice preseason game. And I think it's going to come down to those two guys. But I will say this, the thing that could keep J.P. Richardson on is that Devin Duvernay is also hurt, and that is our return specialist. J.P. Richardson is a guy that can return kickoff as well. So look out for that one. Joel Wilson, the tight end. Joe Wilson is a Ryan Poles guy. And, I don't know if he's for sure to be there, but when you look at it, he led the Bears in catches at 11. He had 85 yards, 1 touchdown in 3 preseason games. But, while he is a talented tight end, make no mistake about it, some of these guys are going to stick around on the practice squad. I think the Bears have their tight end rotation pretty well solidified. I think Durham Smythe's going to stay on. And then I think, of course, Cole Kmet, Colston Loveland, that's probably going to be the 3 tight ends if we carry 3. So Joel Wilson is a guy that I think's out, but he could find his way on the practice squad to stick around the Chicago Bears franchise. Next up, Power Echols, the linebacker. I was very high on Power Echols. He was a guy that I had a lot of hope for, especially with what he did at North Carolina. Being the middle linebacker there. And he, for what it's worth, he had himself a solid season, a preseason, right? 6 tackles in 3 games. I think he played pretty well under Dennis Allen's system and looked pretty good there. I think he also played pretty well in coverage. But I do think he's a guy that's a candidate for the practice squad, and thus I do think that can lead him to getting cut. But again, the Bears linebacking room isn't necessarily the deepest, so you never know what can happen with Power Echols, but he didn't have necessarily the best showing in the Bears' last preseason game either. So I do think that he is going to be a candidate to get cut by the Bears. And we all have talked about Tyler Scott, but we know that one thing with Ryan Poles, he likes to keep guys around that he's drafted. He keeps them around for a little bit longer to give them more time, more area. I have seen some interesting articles as well out there. Nothing from like any major Bears insider or anything, but one even listing Kieran Amagaje as a potential guy that could be cut by the Bears. And here's the thing. Karan has had his moments, and him even competing for the starting lineup. I do think this. I think the Bears, with bringing in Karan and them knowing already that he was going to be a guy that was going to take some time to develop. He was going to take some time to turn into what they did. I think they already were making an investment with him by even bringing him in and drafting him. But hey, you never know. I could completely be wrong on that. And we'll see how it's going to happen. But there are more roster cuts coming for the Bears. Obviously, that's going to be happening. They got to get this roster down quite considerably. It's going to be interesting. A guy like Ryan Bates as a veteran who could save the Bears quite a bit of money by cutting him. But as a rotational piece, he had himself a pretty solid preseason. Where it's going to look like for him, Ricky Stromberg, Doug Kramer, right? All those offensive line guys, because depth is really important there. It's going to be interesting there to see how that all shakes out. Miles Boykin, another guy who had himself a pretty solid preseason. I could see him not necessarily sticking around on the final roster if you want to get a guy like J.P. Richardson in there. So we'll see. On the defensive side of the ball, it's so much up in the air on the defensive side of the ball as far as cuts. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Like a guy like Xavier Carlton, I think he's for sure going to be gone. He's like the 4th defensive end on the board there. I think he's probably going to be gone, a guy that's gone. Dominique Robinson, another guy that kind of surprised some Bears fans, Bears coaches for sure. And I guess we saw a little bit of it in the preseason. Nothing that really made me completely change my mindset on what we've seen from Dominique Robinson over the years, but you never know what's going to happen there. So there's a number of guys to look out for. We'll be covering it here. You guys know what we do here at Chicago Bears Central. When news drops, we drop. So we'll keep you guys informed of anything that happens with the Bears. With that said, I want to get into some of the thoughts now. The preseason is over with for the Bears, and it's been a mixed bag. There are some Bears fans that have left this preseason even more confident. There's some Bears fans that left this preseason with even more doubt over Caleb Williams and his progression under Ben Johnson, all those type of things and reactions are there all over the spectrum when it comes down to it. John Breach of CBS Sports reviewed the entire NFL schedule and made his predictions after the preseason, and his predictions for the Bears may actually, turn some heads when it comes down to, like, he is actually pretty favorable of Ben Johnson. They also have of Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. He actually predicts that the Chicago Bears are going to win their Week 1 matchup over the Minnesota Vikings. And I tell you what, that would be a great week start to the season for the Chicago Bears. He did predict that the Bears would lose their first game in Week 2 against the Detroit Lions. It is the Detroit Lions. That's going to be an interesting game with Ben Johnson now being our head coach. But it was more favorable for the Bears than I think what some people would be expecting, considering how up and down the preseason was when it came down to the Bears. Started off their preseason with a tie with the Miami Dolphins, had a big game against the Buffalo Bills, and then a big finish against the Kansas City Chiefs, led by Tyson Bagent. So, with that prediction, we'll see. The Bears are going to be up for a big test for the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy's likely he's making his first start for the Vikings. You got receiver Jordan Addison, who's going to be out due to suspension there. And so this is going to be a time where the Bears have an opportunity to take advantage of an opponent at the start of their season, especially with having a rookie quarterback there, which is where Dennis Allen and the defense and how consistently they can get to that rookie quarterback is going to make a difference in that game wholeheartedly. So we'll see how that ends up shaking out. But a solid start is really important for the Chicago Bears. I think the way that the schedule has worked out for the Bears, that the Bears are going to need a solid start to the season. If you start off 0-2, for example, this year, I think that's going to be really difficult for the Bears. We go up to week, It's going to be tough there with Dallas Cowboys week 3. Then we got road games against Washington, Baltimore, Cincinnati's week 6 through 9, which is going to be, good there. A slow start for the Bears season this year is going to be crazy. And Caleb Williams is going to have a tough test ahead of him that he's going to have to face at the start of his second year. And so if Caleb Williams can do that, we'll see, man. He's had some big box scores against some of these teams before, but Caleb Williams' growth and his ability as quarterback is really going to be the thing a lot of people are looking at, as well as Ben Johnson's play calling, of course. Like Ben Johnson as the head coach is going to get a lot of eyes on it also. But the Bears, you cannot make a lot of assumptions about the Bears, good or bad, in this preseason, no matter what people tell you, no matter even so much so as Bears fans saying crazy things like, "Oh, we should trade Caleb Williams for Micah Parsons now." Like the reactionary thing from this audience off. And the thing that makes it funny, and honestly, is that the same people who, when something good happens, say, "Oh, it's preseason, you can't take it seriously," are the same exact people that, "Oh my God, he had a bad stretch in a preseason game. Oh, we got to get him out of here. It proves that he's terrible." You can't burn it from both ends. All will be told in the regular season, and what's told there, it's unequivocal at that point, right? We know the Bears have too much talent. They have good play callers. They have all those things in place, and so we'll see what happens with the season, but I do think it's going to be hugely important for the Bears if they can start off 2-1 this season. That through the first 3 weeks, especially with the bye week coming in week 5, that is going to be really important for the Chicago Bears. They can be at least 500 going into the bye week. Not to say that's going to save anything for the Bears season necessarily, because it's not. They still have a lot that they're going to have to prove, but I think that goes a long way in getting things on the right path for the Chicago Bears. They cannot afford a slow start this year. And we'll see what happens. If the Bears do avoid that slow start, if they get out to a strong start, the sky's the limit for the Chicago Bears. But if they get out to 0-2, 0-3 start this year, man, is this season going to be a punch in the face. That's just my thought process. But you guys can let me know how you feel on it down below. With that, moving into the next topic, Brad Berriman over at Bears Goggles On wrote an interesting article on Caleb Williams and 4 other Bears who could be first-time Pro Bowlers in the 2025 season. At number 5, DJ Moore. DJ Moore has had seasons in the past where it does look like he should have been a Pro Bowler, right? When 100 receptions, when it comes down to it, he failed to get 100 receptions last year. He failed to get 1,000 yards last year. He was at 98 receptions and 966 yards, which is rare for DJ Moore. He's consistently been over that, and we'll see what happens. And over 90 receptions in 3 of the last 4 years as well. If DJ Moore stays healthy and Caleb Williams stays healthy, and this team does have wins, I think that DJ Moore is going to have an opportunity to make a Pro Bowl. Now, for what it's worth, there's a lot of buzz around Rome Odunze and his chemistry with Caleb Williams as well. We got to see how all that's going to shake out, but we'll see. Next up is Caleb Williams. They do list Caleb Williams as number 4 at quarterback. Kevin Patra of the NFL.com did list Caleb Williams as his top candidate to be the Chicago Bears' first Pro Bowler. And we'll see. I mean, he has things that are in place for him. Ben Johnson as his play caller, tons of weapons at the wide receiver and tight end, improved offensive line, running back room. We'll see, right? But he has the tools at his shed. And if Caleb Williams, who had over 4,000 yards from scrimmage last year, does end up making a Pro Bowl this year, it would silence a lot of doubt. I mean, I say a lot, some of the doubt around how they feel about it. Next up, Drew Dahlman at center. They list Drew Dahlman at number 3 here. One of the best center on the market this past offseason. Even though I will say this, the preseason wasn't necessarily the best for him, but it is what it is when it comes down to it. He's had great grades when it comes down to it over the course of his season. His run blocking grade did fall last year, though, so he's going to be trying to build that back up. And we'll see what happens there with Drew Dahlman if he can be a Pro Bowler this year. It would be nice to have a Pro Bowl center. Next up, Jaquan Brisker at number 2 here. Now, this would be huge for Jaquan Brisker, who wants a new contract with the Chicago Bears, and things are standing right now. They're kind of waiting to see how his health is going to look in 2025. Jaquan Brisker, a guy that was on pace to have a 3rd straight year of over 100 tackles. If he does that again, and then you also look at what he's going to do under Dennis Allen, and we'll see. Dennis Allen, for what it's worth, told Jaquan Brisker that the New Orleans Saints were going to draft him if he was there, but the Bears picked him 1 pick before the New Orleans Saints. So that tells me that Dennis Allen is excited about having Jaquan Brisker on this roster and how he can use him. It just matters, that comes down to how well Jaquan Brisker how healthy he stays and how well he plays this season, if he's going to get that good long-term deal with the Bears. But making a Pro Bowler when it comes Pro Bowl is going to be a big thing, flower in his cap there to make that. And then lastly, at number 1, they have TJ Edwards, and absolutely, I can't think of a Bear that deserves it more other than maybe Jalen Johnson to be a Pro Bowler this year, but they're talking about first-time Pro Bowlers. TJ Edwards has been everything that we signed him to be plus more. And that's great to see. TJ Edwards feels like a Chicago Bears linebacker. The identity, the tenacity, the execution, everything that you think of historically about a Chicago Bears linebacker, TJ Edwards brings that all together and pixelize that. And so if he gets it and is able to make a Pro Bowl, great. If the Bears can have, I just hope that the Bears have more than one Pro Bowler this year. Because to me, that signifies that the Bears had a pretty solid season as well. Hopefully goes some way to silence some doubts also when it comes down to it. I do think he is the most safe pick. 129 total tackles, 12 tackles for a loss. When it came down to it, he only played 1,055 defensive snaps as well, which means that he rarely left the field. And I think when it comes to it, like TJ Edwards, if he gets over 150 tackles this year, which he has done before, I think that he's going to be a guy that can make a Pro Bowl this year. But the Bears have to win, and he has to have it in the right moments and at the right times on national TV, things like that. So we'll see there. I think also having Dennis Allen as your defensive coordinator, that's going to be another guy there as well. You look at Demario Davis under Dennis Allen, who had a first-team All-Pro Bowl, 4 second-team All-Pro, and 2 Pro Bowl nods when it came down to his time under Dennis Allen. So not to say that's going to translate one for one, but I do think it does show that Dennis Allen knows how to use linebackers and put them in a situation to where they can get noticed for those type of accolades. And we'll see if that ends up being something that can happen for TJ Edwards under Dennis Allen with the Chicago Bears. But we shall see. Now you guys know that that Mondays are used for overflow on the mailbag episodes, and we got one mailbag that I want to get into today. This one is from a first-time caller, but long-time listener. This one's from Bobby.
Yo, man, it's Bobby Domino hitting you back again, man. I just wanted to check in. I love your show. I love the opportunity to communicate. I'm looking at this DJ Moore question, and the reality is the fact that they drafted Rome and LB3, and OZ is stepping up real good as well. I have no problem trading DJ after this season. I think it should be done after the season. He's close to $30 million. That'd be a nice slice to take off the cake, and get some draft capital for potentially for next year or a player. If you can give me a defensive end, they can run that NASCAR package when Deo moves inside. That's phenomenal. I like that. Maybe package DJ Moore and Sweat in a deal if somebody's willing to take that $50 million check, but I doubt it. Anyway, and as far as Trey Henderson, man, the conversation in making a trade on him, for first and Stevenson on the surface, I would say yes. You're going to give up Tyreek Stevenson and next year's first-round draft pick, which should be in the 20s. Yeah. However, the flip side of that, and I think what's holding this thing up, is what is the contract that Trey Henderson wants? Does Trey Henderson want like a 5-year deal paying him $200 million? If that's what he wants, then man, I'm not willing to make that trade. And I think that's why he's still a Bengal. I think there are teams willing to pay Trey what he wants to get for his compensation. And then I think that there are teams that are willing to trade Cincinnati what they want for compensation. But I don't think that there's been a team that's willing to do both. And that was what made the Khalil Mack deal possible, was the Chicago Bears were willing to give up the compensation to the Raiders and willing to sign Khalil Mack to the huge contract. And so far, no team in the NFL is willing to do both of those things for Trey Henderson. And I think that's why he's still a Bengal and probably why he'll stay a Bengal. And then, one of your other callers called himself a Badgett baddie. I mean, come on, man. Seriously, what the fuck? Tell us you grew up without a father in your house without telling us, that's just ridiculous, bro. Man up. And as far as Ozzie, the swing tackle position, I know you use that word and people use that word swing tackle. Like when I think of a swing tackle, I think of the guy who's going to be the backup left tackle, backup right tackle. And Ozzie can definitely play that role. But when I look at Ben Johnson's offense, and I think of a swing tackle, I think of that sixth offensive lineman, that tackle eligible.
Trading DJ Moore after the season, I think that it would have to come to, if DJ Moore, just him and Caleb Williams' chemistry just looks bad, and chemistry with Luther Burden, Olamide, Rome, all look above him, then yeah. But I'm still at the place right now as it stands. I'm not willing, or I don't want to give up talent where we don't have to give up talent. We have talent with DJ Moore. We have a talented wide receiver core. I'm not even thinking about trading these guys while we're still trying to be a team that's winning. Why would we want to give away talent for a team that's struggled so much in winning for as long as we have? We got a lot that we need to do to become a winning franchise here in Chicago. So why give up talent in DJ Moore? Now I get it that you're not trading DJ Moore for nothing. It's not like you're just sitting away and not getting nothing back. I understand that. I get that. I feel you there. But for me, it's still all about needing and wanting talent on this roster, keeping it. Let's see what we have here first before we look to move on from it. And we got other things that we can do to bring in the talent that we need. So, we'll see what happens. But I'm not going to say it's outside the realm of possibility either. It really depends on how the season plays out. And in watching how the season pans out, that can make that determination for you and exactly what you're going to do, with your roster. So, we shall see. We shall see. Again, I'm not saying you're crazy for saying it. I'm not saying you're crazy for bringing it up, but it really a lot hinges on what we do this season. As far as giving up Stevenson and a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson, I think you hit the nail on the head, saying that it comes down to, what does Hendrickson want? What does he want in the contract? What's the contract stipulations that he want, and how much are you paying him for a player that is 32 years old in Trey Hendrickson? So, that's the thing that you have to ask here. And I think a big part of that too is going to come down to, like, how well does Austin Booker really develop? And what do we actually have here in those guys? And if they do develop, do you feel like you need to make that big swing for a guy like Trey Hendrickson? So I think those are the things you're looking at. But, thank you, Bobby, for calling in. And, of course, like we do with everything over the season, we'll see how it goes over the course of the season. But that's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Shy Bear Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Chi-Town up, Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.